The smell of barbecue smoke drifts through Sarah's perfectly manicured backyard as I watch my wife hand our 6-month-old daughter to him again. Marcus cradles Lily like she's made of spun glass, his face glowing with that same pride I felt the first time I held her. But this isn't his first time. It's been happening for months, and today they're calling it his first Father's Day. I grip my beer bottle so tightly my knuckles turn white, watching this charade unfold before me. Sarah's friends cluster around them like moths to a flame, cooing over what a natural Marcus is with babies. The irony tastes bitter in my mouth, metallic like blood from a bitten tongue. "Look how good he is with her," Janet from next door gushes, her voice carrying across the patio. "Some men just have that paternal instinct, don't they?" I want to scream. I want to tell them all that I'm the one who gets up at 3 a.m. when Lily has nightmares, that I'm the one who knows she prefers her bottle slightly warm, not hot, and that she calms down fastest when I hum that old song my father used to sing to me. But instead, I smile and nod, playing the part of the supportive husband watching his wife's friend bond with their child. The sound of children's laughter echoes from the bounce house Sarah rented for the occasion, as if this were some grand celebration worth commemorating. Marcus lifts Lily high above his head, and she giggles with pure delight, her tiny hands reaching for his face. My chest constricts with a pain so sharp I have to look away. I retreat to the kitchen, the cool tile floor a relief under my feet after standing on the hot concrete patio. Through the window, I watch Sarah adjust the world's greatest dad banner she hung this morning. The fabric flutters in the breeze, mocking me with its bold blue letters. 3 weeks ago, everything made sense. 3 weeks ago, I was just a father struggling to connect with his wife after our daughter's birth, assuming our distance was normal new parent stress. I'd even bought Marcus a Father's Day card as a joke, something about honorary dads that I thought would be funny since he spent so much time helping us out. Now I know the truth and the joke's on me. I pull my phone from my pocket, scrolling through the photos from this morning. There's Marcus cutting into a cake shaped like a baby bottle, Sarah beaming beside him like a proud wife. There's Lily reaching for him with both arms, choosing him over the woman who literally gave birth to her. There's me in the background of every shot, a ghost haunting his own life. The refrigerator hums quietly behind me, a steady mechanical heartbeat that reminds me of the monitors in the hospital when Lily was born. I remember holding her for the first time, counting her fingers and toes, whispering promises about all the adventures we'd have together, camping trips in the mountains, fishing expeditions when she got older, teaching her to ride a bike in this very backyard. Those dreams feel like they belong to someone else now. I trace my finger along the edge of my phone, thinking about the camping gear stored in our garage. The tent I bought last spring still has its tags on. The sleeping bags I ordered after Lily was born sit in their original packaging. I'd planned to take her on her first camping trip this week, just the two of us, a chance to bond away from Sarah's constant hovering and corrections. But that was before I knew about Marcus, before I understood that I wasn't losing my mind. I was losing my family. Through the window, I watch him buckle Lily into her car seat while Sarah packs up leftover cake. They move together with practiced efficiency, like they've done this 1,000 times before. Maybe they have. Maybe while I was working late, staying extra hours to afford the bigger house Sarah wanted, they were playing house with my daughter. The thought hits me like a physical blow, doubling me over the kitchen counter. The granite feels cold against my palms, grounding me in this moment of crystal-clear betrayal. They're not just celebrating Father's Day, they're rehearsing for a future where I don't exist. But I'm still here. I'm still Lily's father, no matter what games they're playing or what fantasy they're living. And tomorrow, while they sleep off their celebration and plan their next move, I'll make one of my own. The camping trip isn't canceled. It's just getting a different guest list. I straighten up, smoothing my shirt and checking my reflection in the microwave door. Time to rejoin the party, to play the oblivious husband for one more evening. But behind my smile, I'm already calculating. How much formula do I need for a week in the mountains? Which route will get us there fastest? How long before they realize we're gone? Marcus appears in the doorway, Lily sleeping peacefully in his arms, her face pressed against his shoulder in complete trust. "She's getting tired," he says, his voice soft with affection. "Should I put her down for her nap?" The casual way he asks, like he lives here, like this is his house, his child, his life, ignites something dangerous in my chest. But I just nod. Watching him carry my daughter upstairs to the nursery I painted myself, to the crib I assembled with trembling hands 9 months ago. Tomorrow, everything changes. Tonight, I plan. 3 weeks ago, I trembled as I held Sarah's phone, staring at the text thread that shattered my world. The device felt warm in my palms, still heated from her pocket where it had been buzzing insistently during dinner. She'd left it on the counter when she went to put Lily to bed, and curiosity killed more than just the cat. "Can't wait for our family camping trip," Marcus had written, the words glowing accusingly on the screen. "Lily's going to love the mountains. Our family." The phrase echoed in my mind like a death knell, each repetition driving the knife deeper into my chest. I'd been planning that same camping trip for months, just me and my daughter, a chance to bond away from Sarah's suffocating control. I'd researched campgrounds, bought equipment, even taken a wilderness safety course online, but here was Marcus, talking about our family like I didn't exist, like he had every right to plan my daughter's first outdoor adventure. My hands shook as I scrolled up through their conversation, each message a fresh betrayal. Photos of Lily's first smile that I'd never seen. Updates about doctor's appointments I didn't know about. Plans for activities during the week I thought I'd be working late at the office. The week Sarah claimed she needed space to adjust to motherhood. The sound of Sarah's footsteps on the stairs sent panic through my system. I quickly returned her phone to its exact position on the counter, my heart hammering against my ribs like a caged bird. When she entered the kitchen, I was standing at the sink, pretending to rinse our dinner plates while my mind reeled with the implications of what I'd discovered. "Lily went down easily tonight," Sarah said, wrapping her arms around my waist from behind. Her touch, once comforting, now felt like a performance. "Marcus stopped by earlier while you were at work. He helped me reorganize her nursery." Her nursery. Not the nursery, or Lily's room, but her nursery, like Sarah was already practicing for a different life. I focused on the feeling of warm dishwater flowing over my hands, using the sensation to anchor myself before I said something I couldn't take back. "That was nice of him," I managed, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. "He's been really helpful since Lily was born." Helpful. What an inadequate word for what Marcus had been doing. He'd been there for Lily's first laugh while I was stuck in a client meeting. He'd witnessed her first successful attempt at rolling over while I was dealing with the Henderson account. He'd been living my life while I paid for the privilege of watching from the sidelines. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling while Sarah slept peacefully beside me. Every small sound she made, the soft sigh when she shifted positions, the way she murmured in her sleep, felt like evidence of her deception. How long had this been going on? How many moments with my daughter had I missed while they built their alternative family? The digital clock cast red numbers on the wall. 2:47 a.m. In the nursery down the hall, Lily stirred with her usual early morning fussiness. I started to get up, but Sarah's hand touched my arm. "I'll get her," she whispered, already sliding out of bed. "You need your sleep for that big presentation tomorrow." But I followed anyway, padding silently down the hallway to watch from the doorway. Sarah lifted Lily with practiced ease, humming a lullaby I'd never heard before. It was beautiful and unfamiliar, like everything else in my life had become. "Daddy will be here soon," Sarah whispered to our daughter, her voice barely audible. Just a few more hours. Daddy. The word hit me like a physical blow. She wasn't talking about me. I was already here, standing in the shadows of my own home like an intruder. She was talking about Marcus, the man who would arrive tomorrow morning as he had every morning for the past month, ostensibly to help out while I was at work. I retreated to my office, closing the door with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot in the quiet house. The camping gear catalogs I'd been studying lay scattered across my desk, their bright photos of family adventures now mocking me with their promise of connection and joy. I'd circled a dozen campgrounds within driving distance, made lists of supplies, even practiced setting up the tent in our backyard one Saturday while Sarah was shopping. All that planning, all that hope, and Marcus was already making his own arrangements. I pulled out a legal pad and began making a different kind of list. Not camping supplies this time, but evidence. Dates when Marcus had been at our house. Times when Sarah had claimed to be too tired for my company, but had seemed energetic and happy the next morning. Moments when Lily had seemed to recognize someone who supposedly was just Uncle Marcus. The pattern emerged like a photograph developing in solution, becoming clearer and more painful with each detail I remembered. This wasn't a recent development. It had been building for months, maybe since Lily was born. While I'd been struggling to balance work and fatherhood, they'd been building a world that didn't include me. But I was still Lily's father. That hadn't changed, no matter what fantasy they were living. And if they thought they could celebrate Father's Day without the actual father present, they were about to learn how wrong they were. The camping trip would happen, just not the way anyone expected. By morning, I had a plan. Not just for a week in the mountains, but for reclaiming what was mine. They wanted to play house? Let them explain to everyone where the baby went when Daddy took her camping. The real Daddy. The only one who mattered. I liberate myself from the backyard celebration, stepping into our kitchen where the sound of clinking dishes masks my movements. Sarah's laughter carries through the window as she watches Marcus push Lily on the baby swing. The swing I built with my own hands during those eager weeks before she was born, when I thought I understood what my life would become. The wooden seat rocks gently back and forth, and Lily's delighted squeals pierce the air like tiny arrows finding their mark in my chest. I assembled that swing during my lunch breaks, carefully sanding each piece to ensure there were no splinters that could hurt tiny fingers. I hung it from the strongest branch of our oak tree, testing the ropes myself to make sure they could support my growing daughter for years to come. Now Marcus pushes her with the confidence of ownership, his hands steady on her back as he murmurs something that makes her giggle. From my position at the kitchen window, I can see how naturally they move together, like they've been doing this dance since she was born. Maybe they have. I turn away from the window and focus on the task at hand. The camping gear lives in our garage, carefully organized on metal shelving units I installed last winter. Everything is exactly where I left it after my last inventory. The four-season tent still in its packaging, sleeping bags rated for mountain temperatures, a camp stove I've never used but studied the manual for obsessively. The beauty of their arrogance is how completely they've underestimated me. Sarah thinks I'm the bumbling father who can't change a diaper without step-by-step instructions. Marcus probably pictures me as the workaholic husband too busy earning money to notice what's happening in his own home. They've been so careful to maintain their secret that they've forgotten I have secrets too. Like the fact that I took a week of vacation days I never mentioned. Officially, I'm supposed to be buried in quarterly reports and client meetings all week. In reality, I cleared my schedule 3 months ago, planning for Lily's first camping adventure. Sarah doesn't know because I wanted it to be a surprise. Our chance to bond away from her constant corrections and anxiety about every tiny detail of childcare. The irony tastes sharp on my tongue, metallic like pennies. I planned this trip to save my relationship with my daughter, not knowing I'd end up using it to steal her back. I opened the garage door just wide enough to slip inside, the concrete floor cool beneath my bare feet. Everything I need is here. The portable crib I bought for when Lily outgrows her bassinet. Enough formula and baby food for a month. Diapers in 3 different sizes because I wasn't sure how quickly she'd grow. I'd been methodical in my preparations, the same way I approach everything important in my life. Unlike some people, I don't improvise when it comes to my daughter's welfare. The camping chair I bought for myself sits folded against the wall, and I picture setting it up beside a mountain stream while Lily naps in her portable crib. No one correcting my technique or suggesting I'm holding her wrong. No Marcus appearing at just the right moment to demonstrate the better way to soothe her cries. Just me and my daughter, learning each other's rhythms without an audience. My phone buzzes against my hip. Probably another text from my office asking about reports I'm supposedly working on this week. But when I check the screen, it's a message from Sarah. "Can you grab more ice from the freezer? Marcus is making his famous margaritas for the adults." His famous margaritas. In my house, using my blender for my wife. The casual possessiveness of it sets my teeth on edge, but I text back a simple, "Sure," and head inside to play the helpful husband one more time. The freezer is full of frozen meals Sarah's been stockpiling. Easy dinners for busy nights when she's too tired to cook. But tucked behind the ice cream, I spot something that makes my blood run cold. A bottle of champagne with a note tied around its neck. For when we can finally celebrate properly. Written in Marcus's blocky handwriting. When they can celebrate properly. Not if, when. Like my removal from the picture is already a done deal, just a matter of timing and paperwork. I grab the ice with hands that want to shake, but force themselves steady. Through the kitchen window, I watch Marcus demonstrate some elaborate bouncing technique to Sarah, both of them laughing as Lily claps her tiny hands in delight. They look like a family. They look happy. They look like everything I thought I wanted my life to be. But looks can be deceiving. Tomorrow morning, while they sleep off their Father's Day celebration and plan their next move in this elaborate chess game, I'll be loading my truck with camping gear and reclaiming what's mine. They want to play house? Let them try explaining to everyone where the baby went when the real father took her on vacation. The camping trip isn't just happening, it's happening without them. And when we come back, if we come back, everything will be different. They'll understand that there are consequences for trying to erase a man from his daughter's life. I carry the ice outside with a smile on my face, already counting down the hours until I can stop pretending everything is fine. 18 hours until I can finally breathe again. 18 hours until I take back my life. The baby monitor crackles to life at 5 a.m. Lily's soft whimpers sending panic through my nervous system like an electric shock. Sarah stirs beside me, her arm reaching across the bed toward the sound, with the automatic response of a mother who's been training for this moment for 6 months. But I'm already moving, my feet hitting the cold hardwood floor before her eyes fully open. "I've got her," I whisper, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins like liquid fire. This is it. The moment I've been planning for 3 weeks, the beginning of the end of their elaborate charade. Sarah mumbles something unintelligible and burrows deeper into her pillow, probably assuming I'm just being helpful, like I have been every morning since Lily was born. She doesn't know that this is the last time she'll wake up in a house that contains both her husband and her daughter. The nursery door creaks softly as I push it open, and Lily's crying stops almost immediately when she sees me. Her face is red and blotchy from tears, but her eyes light up with recognition. Real recognition. Not the polite interest she shows to strangers or casual acquaintances. This is my daughter, looking at her father. And no amount of manipulation can change that fundamental truth. "Good morning, baby girl," I whisper, lifting her from her crib with the practiced ease that comes from months of 3 a.m. feedings and diaper changes. She fits perfectly against my chest, her tiny fist curling around my finger with surprising strength. "Ready for an adventure?" She gurgles in response, her good mood returning now that she's in familiar arms. I change her diaper by the soft glow of her nightlight, every movement deliberate and quiet. No need to wake Sarah yet. I want as much of a head start as possible before they realize what's happening. The pre-packed diaper bag waits in our closet, hidden behind my winter coats where Sarah never ventures. I filled it yesterday while she was giving Marcus a tour of our neighborhood, showing him the best parks and walking routes like he was planning to move in permanently. Maybe he was. Lily's formula is already measured into travel containers, her favorite stuffed elephant tucked into the bag's side pocket, along with extra pacifiers and the musical mobile that helps her sleep. I've thought of everything, planned for every contingency. Unlike some people, I don't improvise when it comes to my daughter's welfare. The truck sits in our driveway like a loyal beast, its bed already loaded with camping gear I moved out there piece by piece over the past week. Sarah never pays attention to what's in the garage. She leaves all the man stuff to me while she focuses on more important things like planning celebrations for other men. I strap Lily into her car seat with movements that have become second nature, her eyes tracking my face with that intense focus babies reserve for their favorite people. She's not crying, not fussing. She knows she's safe with me, that this is right, even if she can't understand why we're leaving before the sun comes up. "Where are we going, Daddy?" I ask in the silly voice that always makes her smile. "We're going camping. Just you and me, the way it was always supposed to be." The key turns in the ignition with a soft click, and the engine purrs to life with barely a whisper. I've been maintaining this truck meticulously since I bought it, changing the oil religiously and replacing worn parts before they could fail. It won't let us down when we need it most. As we pull out of the driveway, I catch a glimpse of our house in the rearview mirror. The Father's Day banner still hangs from the porch, its cheerful message now a bitter joke. The windows are dark, except for the soft glow of Lily's nightlight in the nursery, the last time that room will look the same. By the time Sarah wakes up, we'll be an hour into the mountains. By the time she calls Marcus in a panic, we'll be setting up camp beside a crystal-clear stream where cell service dies and civilization feels like a distant memory. By the time they figure out where we've gone, we'll be living the life I always planned for us. Just father and daughter, the way nature intended, the way it should have been from the beginning. Lily makes a soft cooing sound from her car seat, and I reach back to touch her tiny hand. "That's right, baby girl. We're going home." The pine-scented air fills our lungs as I carry Lily up the mountain trail, her tiny fist clutching my flannel shirt with surprising determination. The fabric is soft from years of washing, worn smooth in places where I've carried tools and supplies, and now it serves as her lifeline to the familiar in this strange new world we've entered together. She gurgles with delight at every bird call, every rustling leaf, her head swiveling back and forth like a tiny radar dish, taking in all the wonders around us. A chipmunk darts across the path ahead, and she points with one chubby finger, making excited babbling sounds that might be her first attempt at saying, "Look," or "there," or just "wow." This is what I've been missing. These pure moments of discovery without Sarah's constant corrections or Marcus's invasive presence. No one telling me I'm holding her wrong, walking too fast, exposing her to too much stimulation. Just a father and daughter exploring the world together, figuring things out as we go. My phone buzzes against my hip like an angry wasp. probably the beginning of what will become increasingly frantic messages as they wake up and discover our absence. But I silence it without looking, letting the device die a slow death in my pocket. They can panic all they want. We're beyond their reach now, protected by miles of wilderness and the simple fact that what I'm doing is perfectly legal. The campsite I chose sits in a natural clearing beside a creek that babbles over smooth stones like nature's own white noise machine. Lily's eyes widen at the sound, her whole body leaning toward the water with curious intensity. I'd researched this spot for months, reading reviews and studying topographical maps to find something private enough for our needs, but safe enough for a baby. Setting up the tent one-handed while holding Lily proves more challenging than I'd anticipated. But we manage. She watches with fascination as the nylon walls take shape around us, occasionally reaching out to pat the fabric with her open palm. When I finally zip the door closed and we're enclosed in our temporary home, she claps her hands like we've just performed the most amazing magic trick. "Welcome to our house, Lily," I tell her, settling cross-legged on the sleeping bag with her in my lap. No rules except ours. No schedules except what we want to do. The portable crib assembles easily in the corner, one of those genius designs that folds flat for travel but creates a safe sleeping space indoors or out. I'd tested it in our backyard weeks ago, timing myself until I could set it up in under 3 minutes. Lily watches the process with the same intense focus she gives to everything, like she's memorizing each step for future reference. Lunch is a simple affair. Formula for her, a sandwich for me, eaten sitting on a fallen log while she practices her sitting-up skills on a blanket spread across the pine needles. She's getting stronger every day, more coordinated, more aware of the world around her. I've been missing so much, working late and arriving home after her bedtime, trusting Sarah to share the important moments with me. But Sarah wasn't sharing those moments with me. She was sharing them with Marcus. While I thought I was sacrificing for my family's financial security, they were building a relationship that excluded me entirely. Well, now they can explain to everyone where the baby went when her real father decided to spend some quality time with her. The afternoon passes in a haze of small discoveries. Lily is fascinated by pine cones, turning them over in her hands like precious artifacts. She startles at the sound of a woodpecker, but then listens intently, trying to locate the source of the rhythmic tapping. When a butterfly lands on our blanket, she stares at it with such wonder that I almost cry. These are the moments Sarah claimed I was too distracted to appreciate, too stressed from work to really connect with our daughter. But look at us now. No distractions, no stress, just pure presence and attention. Maybe I needed to remove the interference to discover what kind of father I really am. As evening approaches, I heat Lily's dinner on the camp stove while she sits securely in her portable high chair, babbling a continuous stream of commentary about everything she sees. The meal goes smoothly. No fussing, no throwing food, no refusing to eat. She seems more relaxed out here, away from the tension that's been building in our house like atmospheric pressure before a storm. My phone, briefly revived when I check the time, shows 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. The first few are concerned, then worried, then angry, then desperate. Sarah's voice in the voicemails progresses from confused to panicked to furious, and back to pleading. Marcus's messages are more direct. "Bring her home now, and this isn't funny, and you're scaring Sarah." But I'm not trying to be funny, and Sarah's fear is her own fault. She made choices that led us here, decisions that excluded me from my daughter's life until I became a stranger in my own home. Now she gets to experience what it feels like when someone you love disappears without explanation. As darkness falls, I zip us into the tent and settle Lily in her portable crib with her favorite elephant and a bottle of warm formula. She drinks quietly, her eyes growing heavy as the day's adventures catch up with her. The sound of the creek and the soft rustle of wind through pine branches create a natural lullaby that no expensive sound machine could replicate. "Sleep tight, baby girl," I whisper, touching her soft cheek with one finger. "Tomorrow we'll explore even more. Just you and me, the way it should be." She drifts au revoir with a contented sigh, and I lie on my sleeping bag, listening to her steady breathing mix with the night sounds of the forest. For the first time in months, maybe since she was born, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. "They can search all they want. We're not hiding. We're home." "Back home," Sarah's voice cracks as she calls my name through our empty house, the sound echoing off walls that suddenly feel too large and too empty without the constant background noise of our daily routines. She started in the nursery, expecting to find me changing Lily's diaper or getting her dressed for the day, but the crib sat vacant, its mobile spinning slowly in the morning breeze from the open window. The camping gear is gone. She notices that immediately once the initial panic subsides enough for logical thought. The space in the garage where my carefully organized supplies used to live now gapes like missing teeth, accusatory in its emptiness. The diaper bag has vanished from its hook by the door, along with Lily's favorite stuffed elephant and the special blanket my mother knitted before she was born. Marcus paces our living room like a caged animal, his protective instincts kicking in for a child that isn't even his biological daughter, though he's been acting like her father for so long that the distinction probably feels academic at this point. His feet wear a path in the carpet between the window and the fireplace, pausing occasionally to peer through the blinds, as if we might materialize in the driveway. "We need to call the police," he insists for the third time in 10 minutes, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "This is kidnapping. He can't just take her without telling anyone where they're going." But Sarah hesitates, her finger hovering over her phone's emergency button. She knows this isn't kidnapping. Not legally, anyway. I'm Lily's father, listed on the birth certificate, with every right to take my daughter on a camping trip. The fact that she didn't know about it, that she woke up to find us gone, doesn't change the fundamental legality of what I've done. What it changes is the carefully constructed narrative they've been building, the story where I gradually fade into the background, while Marcus takes over more and more of the daily responsibilities of fatherhood. Hard to maintain that fiction when the biological father asserts his rights so dramatically. "Maybe he just needed some time," Sarah says, her voice barely above a whisper. "He's been working so hard lately, and I know he's been feeling disconnected from Lily. Maybe this is his way of bonding with her." The words taste like ash in her mouth because she knows they're lies. I haven't been working harder than usual. I've been working the same demanding schedule I've maintained since before Lily was born, trying to provide for a family that was slowly being taken away from me. And the disconnection she mentions? That was carefully orchestrated, a gradual process of making me feel incompetent and unnecessary until I stepped back and let Marcus fill the space I should have occupied. Marcus stops pacing long enough to stare at her in disbelief. "Time? Sarah? He took a 6-month-old baby into the wilderness without telling anyone where they were going. What if something happens? What if she gets sick? What if—" "Stop!" Sarah's voice cuts through his mounting panic like a blade. "Just stop. I need to think." But thinking is dangerous territory for Sarah right now, because thinking means acknowledging the role she played in creating this situation. Thinking means remembering all the times she encouraged Marcus to help with Lily while simultaneously criticizing my attempts at the same tasks. Thinking means confronting the fact that she fell in love with the idea of a different life, a different husband, a different father for her daughter. The house feels haunted by our absence, every corner holding reminders of the life we'd been building together before everything went wrong. Lily's high chair sits empty in the kitchen, a half-eaten jar of baby food still on the counter from yesterday's lunch. My coffee mug rests in the sink, unwashed, bearing the faint stain of my last morning at home. Sarah's friends start calling around noon, asking about the Father's Day celebration, wanting to know if there are more photos from yesterday's party. She makes excuses, claims we're spending the day quietly as a family, but each lie weighs heavier than the last. How do you explain to your social circle that the guest of honor at yesterday's celebration wasn't actually the father, and the real father has disappeared with the baby? By afternoon, Marcus is openly Googling emergency custody orders and parental kidnapping laws, while Sarah sits curled in my recliner, clutching one of Lily's blankets and trying not to hyperventilate. The cottage they've been building in the clouds, where Marcus gradually becomes Lily's primary father figure while I fade into the role of weekend visitor, is crumbling under the weight of reality. "He knows," Sarah whispers suddenly, her eyes wide with the dawning realization. "He knows about us, about the texts, the plans, everything. That's why he did this." Marcus's laptop screen reflects in his glasses as he looks up from his research. "What are you talking about? How could he know?" But Sarah's mind is racing backward through the past few weeks, cataloging all the small signs she missed, the way I'd been watching them more carefully. The questions about Marcus's schedule that seemed casual, but now feel calculated. The camping gear that had been gradually disappearing from the garage, not all at once, but piece by piece, like someone was preparing for something specific. "The phone," she breathes, her hand flying to her mouth. "3 weeks ago when I left my phone in the kitchen. He was acting strange that night, distant. I thought he was just tired from work, but..." The truth settles over them like a suffocating blanket. This wasn't a spontaneous decision born from stress or frustration. This was planned, calculated, executed with the same methodical precision I bring to everything important in my life. While they were playing house and planning their future, I was planning my own response. And now they're the ones left behind, trying to explain to everyone why the baby is gone and the father has vanished into the wilderness with her. They're the ones who have to sit in an empty house, surrounded by the detritus of their deception, wondering what I'm planning next. The hunter has become the hunted, and they're just beginning to understand how completely the tables have turned. The campfire crackles as I warm Lily's bottle, the orange flames dancing across her wide eyes like nature's own entertainment system. She sits propped against my chest in the camp chair, her tiny fingers exploring the texture of my flannel shirt while we wait for her dinner to reach the perfect temperature. The ritual has become second nature now. Test the formula on my wrist, adjust the warmth, swirl gently to ensure even heating. She's adapting beautifully to our outdoor life, sleeping better in the tent than she ever did in her expensive crib back home, eating with more enthusiasm, laughing at the simplest pleasures. A pine cone rolling past our campsite sends her into giggles. The sound of wind through the trees makes her look up with wonder, tracking movement she can't quite see but somehow senses. I'm discovering muscles in my parenting I never knew existed, liberated from Sarah's constant micromanaging and her endless stream of corrections. Don't hold her like that. You're supporting her head wrong. She doesn't like that song. Out here, there's no one to tell me I'm doing everything incorrectly, and the result is a confidence I didn't know I possessed. This morning, Lily and I hiked further up the mountain trail, her secure in the baby carrier I'd researched for months before buying. She watched everything with intense fascination. A squirrel gathering nuts, leaves fluttering in the breeze, the play of sunlight and shadow on the forest floor. No one rushed us. No one insisted we needed to get back for her schedule. No one suggested I was exposing her to too much stimulation. The baby carrier had been another source of conflict at home. Sarah insisted the expensive European brand was the only safe option, while I'd found one with better reviews and more practical features for a third of the price. Of course, Marcus had agreed with Sarah. He always agreed with Sarah, and my choice was dismissed as cutting corners on our daughter's safety. But this inferior carrier has performed flawlessly for 3 days now, distributing Lily's weight evenly across my shoulders and hips while she enjoys a front-row seat to the wilderness adventure. She even fell asleep in it this afternoon, her cheek pressed against my chest, completely trusting in my ability to keep her safe. The bottle reaches the perfect temperature, and I settle back in the camp chair to feed her while the fire pops and hisses beside us. She drinks eagerly, her eyes never leaving my face, and I realize this is the longest stretch of uninterrupted time we've ever spent together. No work calls, no Sarah hovering with suggestions, no Marcus appearing at convenient moments to help with tasks I was perfectly capable of handling myself. "You're doing great out here, aren't you, baby girl?" I murmur, wiping a drop of formula from her chin. "No stress, no drama, just you and Daddy figuring things out together." She responds with a contented sigh around the bottle's nipple, her free hand patting my arm with surprising coordination. At 6 months, she's developing her own personality, her own preferences, and I'm finally getting to observe them without constant interference. She likes the sound of running water. The creek keeps her entertained for hours. She's fascinated by birds, following their flight patterns with intense concentration. She prefers to eat when she's genuinely hungry rather than on a rigid schedule imposed by parenting books. All things I'm learning for the first time at 6 months old because Sarah's anxiety and Marcus's overeager involvement had turned every interaction into a performance instead of a natural exchange between father and daughter. The sound of my phone buzzing from inside the tent interrupts my thoughts. I've been turning it on once a day to check for actual emergencies, though what constitutes an emergency in my current worldview has narrowed considerably. Work crises that seemed urgent a week ago now feel manageable from a distance. The quarterly reports that were consuming my life suddenly seem less important than teaching my daughter to recognize different bird calls. Today's messages followed the same escalating pattern as the previous days. Sarah's voice growing more strained with each voicemail, Marcus's texts becoming more threatening, and a few new additions from numbers I don't recognize, probably lawyers or private investigators they've hired to track us down. But they're looking for someone who's hiding, someone who's running away from something. I'm not hiding. I'm exactly where I planned to be, doing exactly what I intended to do. The fact that they can't find us says more about their understanding of me than my ability to disappear. Lily finishes her bottle and immediately begins her post-meal babbling routine, a stream of sounds that almost resembles conversation. I respond to each burst of chatter as if she's telling me important news about her day, and she seems delighted by the attention. This is how conversations should work. Give and take, listening and responding, no one trying to control or direct the flow. "Tell me about the squirrel you saw this morning," I prompt, and she launches into an animated series of gestures and sounds that could absolutely be describing a small, furry creature gathering acorns. "Really? And what did you think about the way he ran up that tree?" More babbling, more gestures, her whole body involved in whatever story she's trying to tell. I find myself laughing genuinely for the first time in months, not the polite chuckle I'd been producing at Sarah's dinner parties or Marcus's attempts at humor, but real amusement at my daughter's earnest communication efforts. As the sun begins to set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that no camera could capture, I realize I'm completely happy. Not content, not satisfied, but genuinely happy in a way I'd almost forgotten was possible. The constant low-level anxiety that had become my baseline, worry about work, about money, about whether I was being a good enough husband and father, has evaporated in the mountain air. Out here, success is measured in simpler terms. Did Lily eat well? Yes. Is she healthy and content? Absolutely. Did we have fun exploring today? Without question. Are we safe and comfortable? Completely. Everything else, the texts, the calls, the drama unfolding back home, feels like noise from a different world. Problems belonging to people I used to be. I strap Lily into her portable high chair and begin preparing our dinner, her watching every move with scientific interest. The camp stove ignites with a satisfying whoosh, and soon the smell of heating pasta fills the clearing. She claps when I add the sauce, as if I've performed a magic trick, and I find myself narrating each step of the cooking process for her entertainment. Now we stir it carefully so nothing burns, I explain, demonstrating with exaggerated movements that make her laugh. Cooking is all about patience and paying attention, just like taking care of babies. The parallel strikes me as I say it. Both cooking and childcare require presence, attention, the willingness to adjust based on immediate feedback rather than rigid adherence to predetermined plans. Both are ruined by too many cooks trying to control the process. After dinner, I spread a blanket beside the dying fire and let Lily practice her crawling while I clean our dishes in the creek. She's getting stronger, more determined, occasionally managing to move forward a few inches before collapsing into giggles. No one here to worry that she might get dirt on her clothes or that the ground is too rough for her delicate skin. When she finally tires herself out, I scoop her up and carry her into the tent for the nightly routine that's becoming as natural as breathing. Diaper change, fresh clothes, bottle, story time with whatever book I'm reading aloud, since she seems to enjoy the sound of my voice regardless of content. Tonight, it's a wilderness survival guide, and she listens intently as I read about finding water and building shelter, her eyes growing heavy as my voice provides a soothing soundtrack to her descent into sleep. Chapter 3, I read softly. Building confidence in the wilderness requires learning to trust your instincts and ignore the voices that tell you you're not capable of survival. The irony isn't lost on me. Out here, stripped of all the infrastructure and support systems that define modern life, I'm discovering capabilities I never knew I possessed. Not just the practical skills of camping and outdoor living, but the emotional strength to be Lily's sole caregiver without panic or constant second-guessing. I'm becoming the father I always wanted to be, the father I might have been all along if I'd been given the chance to figure it out without constant interference and criticism. As Lily drifts off to sleep, her breathing settling into the steady rhythm that will carry her through the night, I sit in my camp chair and watch the stars emerge in the clear mountain sky. Tomorrow, we'll explore more of the wilderness, discover new trails and hidden meadows, continue building the bond that should have been forming naturally since the day she was born. They can keep calling and texting and making threats. We're not coming home until I'm ready, until I've had enough time to prove to myself and to Lily that I'm the father she deserves. Sarah's hands tremble as she dials my number for the 100th time, Marcus rubbing her shoulders with practiced intimacy while the phone rings endlessly into the void. The sound echoes through our living room like a death knell, each unanswered ring driving home the reality that I'm choosing not to respond, that this isn't an accident or a misunderstanding but a deliberate separation. They've contacted park rangers in 3 different counties, posted on social media with carefully worded requests for help that don't reveal the full extent of their desperation. Sarah's Facebook post shows a photo of Lily from last week, all bright smiles and chubby cheeks. Missing our little adventurer. If anyone spots a dad and baby camping in the mountains, please let us know they're safe. The responses pour in with offers of help and concern, friends organizing search parties and sharing the post to extend its reach. But buried in the comments are questions that make Sarah's stomach clench. Why don't you know where your husband took your baby? And shouldn't you have his camping plans? And this seems like something you'd discuss first. Each innocent inquiry feels like an accusation, highlighting the fundamental wrongness of the situation they've created. Normal couples discuss vacation plans. Normal families make decisions together. Normal wives know where their husbands take their children. But nothing about their situation has been normal for months. Marcus paces between the window and the couch, his movement constant and agitated like a caged wolf testing the boundaries of his confinement. He's called in favors from friends in law enforcement, reaching out to contacts who might have access to camping permits or trail registrations. But I'd been careful in my planning, paid in cash, avoided official campgrounds, chosen wilderness areas that don't require advance reservations. He's thought this through, Marcus admits reluctantly, ending another fruitless call with a park ranger. This isn't some impulse decision. He's been planning this for weeks, maybe months. The admission hangs in the air like smoke, acrid and suffocating. Sarah stares at the Father's Day banner still hanging from their porch, visible through the front window, its cheerful message now a monument to their miscalculation. They'd been so focused on their own plans, so confident in their ability to gradually edge me out of the picture, that they'd forgotten I might have plans of my own. What if something happens to her out there? Sarah whispers, her voice breaking on the words. She's so little, and he's never taken her camping before. What if she gets sick? What if it rains? What if— Stop! Marcus's voice cuts through her mounting panic, but his own fear bleeds through the attempt at calm. He's her father. He's not going to put her in danger. But even as he says it, they both know the words ring hollow. Not because I would intentionally harm Lily, but because their narrative has been built on the foundation that I'm incompetent, unreliable, incapable of caring for my own daughter without constant supervision and correction. They've spent months undermining my confidence as a parent, and now they're forced to confront the possibility that their assessment was wrong. Or worse, that it was always a convenient fiction designed to justify their betrayal. The private investigator they hired yesterday sits at their kitchen table, spreading maps across the surface like a general planning a campaign. Professional and expensive, recommended by Marcus's lawyer brother, she's already identified 17 possible camping areas within a day's drive of their house. The good news is that wilderness camping with an infant significantly narrows the possibilities, she explains, marking locations with colored pins. He'll need access to clean water, level ground for a tent, and probably cell service for emergencies. That eliminates about 60% of the potential sites. Sarah studies the map with desperate intensity, as if she could divine my location through sheer force of will. But the truth is, she doesn't know me well enough anymore to predict my choices. The man she married would have discussed a camping trip for weeks, researching every detail and seeking her approval for each decision. The man I've become plans in secret and acts without permission. Here, the investigator continues, circling an area in red ink. This region has the highest probability. Multiple access points, established camping areas that don't require permits, and good cell coverage on the ridges. If I were looking for someone who wanted to disappear temporarily, but not permanently, this is where I'd start. Temporarily. The word offers a fragment of hope that Sarah clutches like a lifeline. Temporary means we're coming back. Temporary means this isn't a permanent rupture, just a dramatic gesture that will eventually resolve itself. But the investigator's next words shatter that comfort. Of course, if he's planned this as thoroughly as it appears, he could be anywhere. The camping gear purchases started months ago, according to your credit card records. He's had plenty of time to scout locations, maybe even set up supply caches. Supply caches. The phrase conjures images of an elaborate conspiracy, months of secret preparation for this moment. Sarah tries to remember if I'd seemed different lately, if there were signs she missed, but all she can recall is her own preoccupation with Marcus and the future they were building together. Her guilt gnaws at her like a hungry wolf, sharp teeth finding purchase in every moment of self-doubt. She'd convinced herself that her feelings for Marcus were natural, that marriages evolve, that people grow apart and find new connections. She'd told herself that Lily would benefit from having a more engaged father figure, even if that figure wasn't her biological father. But sitting in this empty house, surrounded by the evidence of a life she'd been systematically dismantling, the justifications feel thin and selfish. She hadn't fallen out of love with me. She'd fallen in love with the idea of someone else, and rather than confronting that honestly, she'd chosen deception and manipulation. Now I was somewhere in the wilderness with their daughter, proving that the incompetent father they'd been marginalizing was perfectly capable of caring for Lily on his own. Every hour that passed without disaster was evidence against their narrative, proof that maybe the problem hadn't been my abilities, but their interference. The sun sets on their fourth day of searching, and Sarah stands at the window watching Marcus load fresh supplies into his car. Tomorrow he'll join the investigator in the field, checking campsites and talking to rangers, playing the role of a concerned family friend rather than the man who'd been slowly replacing me in my own home. "We'll find them," he promises, kissing her forehead with tender reassurance. "And when we do, we'll figure out how to make this right." But Sarah wonders if right is even possible anymore. Too much has been said, too much has been revealed, too many lies have been exposed. The comfortable fiction of their gradual transition has exploded into harsh reality, and she's not sure any of them will survive the aftermath unchanged. As Marcus drives away into the gathering darkness, Sarah sits alone in our house and tries to imagine what I'm thinking right now. Am I angry? Hurt? Planning my next move in this chess game they started without considering the possibility that I might be a better player than they assumed? The house feels haunted by possibilities, by the future they'd been building that now seems as fragile as morning mist. And somewhere out there in the wilderness, her husband and daughter are living a completely different story, one where she's not the protagonist, but the obstacle to overcome. The sound of car doors slamming echoes through our peaceful valley like gunshots. And Lily startles in my arms, her contented babbling cut short by the harsh intrusion of mechanical noise into our natural sanctuary. I peer through the tent flap to see Sarah and Marcus approaching across the meadow, their city clothes absurdly out of place among the towering pines, expensive hiking boots that have never seen a real trail stumbling over roots and rocks. Sarah's mascara has run from crying, dark streaks painting tracks down her cheeks like war paint. But Marcus walks with the confidence of a man claiming his territory. His jaw is set with determination, his hands clenched at his sides, every line of his body radiating the righteous anger of someone who believes he's rescuing a kidnapped child from a dangerous situation. I step outside with Lily, letting them see how perfectly content she is in my arms, how her face lights up when she spots the familiar figures approaching our camp. She reaches towards Sarah with excited babbling, but she doesn't cry or fuss at being held by me. Clear evidence that contradicts whatever narrative they've been selling to justify this dramatic intervention. "There you are," Sarah calls out, her voice bright with forced relief that doesn't quite mask the underlying tension. "We've been so worried about you two. Are you having fun camping, Lily?" The casual tone feels like a performance, as if she's trying to pretend this is a planned rendezvous, rather than the culmination of a 5-day search and rescue operation. But her eyes are scanning the campsite, taking inventory of our supplies and setup with the calculating gaze of someone assessing a situation's legitimacy. "She's been perfect," I reply, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my system. "Sleeping better than she has in months, eating well, loving every minute of our adventure together." Lily punctuates my statement with a delighted squeal, reaching for a pine cone that's fallen near my feet. The sound is pure joy, the kind of unself-conscious happiness that can't be faked or manufactured. Sarah's face crumples slightly at the evidence of her daughter's contentment, but Marcus remains focused on his mission. "This has gone far enough," he says, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "You've made your point, whatever it was, but now it's time to come home. Sarah's been worried sick, and Lily needs to get back to her routine." Her routine. The phrase drips with condescension, the implication that I've been disrupting something important rather than discovering what works naturally for my daughter. But Lily has been thriving without the rigid schedule that had been imposed on her at home. Eating when hungry, sleeping when tired, playing when she felt like exploring. "What routine would that be?" I ask, settling into my camp chair with Lily on my lap. "The one where she barely sees her father because he's always working? Or the one where other people make decisions about her care without consulting the person whose name is on her birth certificate?" The words land like physical blows, and Sarah flinches as if I've struck her. But Marcus steps forward, positioning himself between us like a shield, his protective instincts fully engaged despite the fact that the only danger here is to the fantasy they've been living. "Look, I understand you're upset," he begins, his tone shifting to something that might be intended as reasonable, but comes across as patronizing. "But taking a baby into the wilderness without telling anyone where you were going wasn't the solution. What if something had happened? What if Lily got sick or injured?" I gesture around our well-organized campsite, the portable crib set up under a tarp for shade, the camp stove and cooler that have kept us fed and comfortable for nearly a week. "Look around, Marcus. Does this look like a dangerous situation to you? Does Lily look neglected or unhappy?" She chooses that moment to laugh at something. Maybe the way the afternoon light filters through the pine needles, maybe just the joy of being outdoors, and the sound echoes through the clearing like a bell. Pure, untroubled happiness that makes it impossible to argue that she's suffering or at risk. Sarah steps closer, her hands reaching unconsciously toward Lily before she catches herself. "She does look good," she admits quietly, and there's something like surprise in her voice. Healthy, happy. The admission costs her something. I can see it in the way her shoulders slump slightly. For months, she's been building a case for my incompetence as a parent, collecting evidence of every small mistake and magnifying every moment of uncertainty. But here's Lily, thriving under my sole care, proving that maybe the problem wasn't my abilities, but the interference that had been undermining them. "Of course she looks good," Marcus snaps, irritation bleeding through his attempt at diplomacy. "But that doesn't justify what you've done. You disappeared without a word, took a baby into the middle of nowhere, ignored dozens of calls and messages. People have been searching for you. Sarah hasn't slept in days." "Sarah hasn't slept because she's been lying in the bed she made," I reply, my voice quiet but carrying clearly in the mountain air. "This isn't about camping, Marcus. This is about choices, about consequences, about what happens when people try to erase a father from his daughter's life." The silence that follows my words feels heavy, loaded with implications and accusations that none of us are quite ready to voice directly. A hawk circles overhead, calling out with wild freedom that contrasts sharply with the tension crackling between us like electricity before a storm. Lily breaks the standoff by dropping her pine cone and immediately beginning to fuss about its loss. I retrieve it for her, and she settles back against my chest with contented satisfaction. The simple interaction, need expressed, need met, comfort restored, demonstrates the natural ease that's developed between us over the past 5 days. "She trusts you," Sarah observes, and there's something like wonder in her voice. "I mean, she's always trusted you, but this is different. She's completely relaxed with you." "Because I'm completely relaxed with her," I want to say. because without the constant stream of criticism and correction, I've been able to develop my own rhythm, my own methods, my own confidence as her father. But saying that would be too direct, too confrontational for this delicate moment when everything hangs in the balance. Instead, I adjust Lily in my arms and look directly at Sarah for the first time since they arrived. "She's my daughter," I say simply. "Of course she trusts me. The question is why you've been working so hard to make sure that trust couldn't develop naturally." The accusation hangs in the air like smoke, impossible to ignore or dispel. Marcus's face flushes red with anger or embarrassment, but Sarah just stares at me with eyes that hold something that might be regret. "We need to talk," she says finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "All of us. About everything." But I'm not ready for that conversation yet. Not here, not with Marcus standing guard like her personal protector, not while they still believe they can control the terms of our interaction. "Tomorrow," I tell them, standing up with Lily and taking a step back toward our tent. "You can camp down by the creek tonight if you want, but Lily and I are staying here. We'll talk when I'm ready to talk." It's not a negotiation or a compromise. It's a statement of terms from someone who finally understands his own power in this situation. They can't force me to leave, can't compel me to return to a life that was slowly strangling me, can't continue their charade of concerned family friends when the truth is finally exposed. As I duck into the tent with Lily, I hear Marcus's frustrated voice rising in protest, but Sarah's quieter response cuts him off. They'll spend the night in their expensive SUV or maybe in a hotel an hour away, but they won't go home without us. And tomorrow, we'll begin the conversation that should have happened months ago, about truth, about consequences, and about what happens when people try to steal a man's life while he's too distracted to notice. "She's my daughter!" I roar, my voice echoing off the mountain walls as Lily begins to cry, in response to the sudden tension crackling through our peaceful clearing. But these aren't tears of fear. They're tears of recognition. A baby calling for comfort from the person who's been her constant companion for the past week, her anchor in a world that's suddenly full of raised voices and adult anger. Sarah crumbles at the sound, her perfect facade finally shattering as she realizes what I've been trying to tell them all along. This isn't about camping or spontaneous trips or even her infidelity. This is about a father reclaiming his fundamental right to raise his own child without interference from people who've convinced themselves they know better. "I know," Sarah whispers, tears streaming down her face as she watches me soothe Lily with the practiced ease that comes from 5 days of being her sole caregiver. "I know she's your daughter. She's always been your daughter." But Marcus isn't ready to accept this reality. He stands frozen, realizing for the first time that he's been a pawn in Sarah's game of deception, that his role as the better father figure was built on a foundation of lies and manipulation. His face cycles through confusion, anger, and something that might be embarrassment as he understands how completely he's been used. "This is insane," he says, his voice cracking with the strain of maintaining his position. "You can't just take a baby and disappear because you're having marital problems. There are legal ways to handle custody disputes." "Custody disputes?" I laugh, but there's no humor in the sound. "Marcus, we're married. I'm her biological father. There's no custody dispute here. There's just a wife who's been systematically undermining her husband's relationship with his daughter while building an alternative family structure that excludes him." The words hang in the mountain air like accusations carved in stone. Sarah sinks onto a fallen log, her hands covering her face as the weight of what she's done finally settles on her shoulders. For months, she's been telling herself that she was protecting Lily, that she was creating a more stable environment, that she was making choices in her daughter's best interest. But sitting here in this wilderness clearing, watching me comfort Lily with competence and confidence, the truth becomes undeniable. She's been protecting herself, not her daughter. Protecting her fantasy of a different life with a different man while gradually erasing the inconvenient reality of her actual husband. "Tell him?" I say to Sarah, my voice quiet now but carrying clearly in the silence. "Tell Marcus what you told me in those text messages. About the future you were planning. About the camping trips and family dinners and bedtime stories that would happen after I was out of the picture." Sarah's shoulders shake with silent sobs, but she doesn't deny it. She can't deny it, because Marcus is here. Because he participated in those conversations. Because he knows exactly what I'm talking about, even if he's never had to confront the full implications before. "We were going to wait," Sarah finally whispers, her voice barely audible. "Until after the divorce was final. Until everything was settled legally. We thought it would be easier for everyone, less traumatic for Lily, if the transition happened gradually." "Whose transition?" I demand, taking a step closer while keeping Lily secure in my arms. "Mine out of her life? Because that's what you're really talking about, isn't it? Not some mutual decision about what's best for our family, but your plan to replace me with someone you found more appealing." Marcus finally finds his voice, but it comes out strangled and defensive. "It wasn't like that. We weren't trying to hurt you. We were trying to build something stable for Lily, something consistent. Something that didn't include her actual father," I interrupt. "Something where you got to play daddy while I worked overtime to pay for the privilege of being slowly erased from my daughter's life." The accusation hits its target, and Marcus stumbles backward as if I've physically struck him. His face goes pale as he realizes how his helpful involvement looks from my perspective, not generous assistance from a family friend, but a calculated campaign to usurp my position as Lily's primary male figure. "I never meant for it to go this far," Sarah says, her voice thick with tears. "At first it was just that Marcus was so good with her, and you were working so much and I was overwhelmed. It felt natural to let him help, but then you fell in love with the idea of a different life," I finish for her. "A life where your husband was someone more hands-on, more emotionally available, more like the father you thought Lily deserved." The words are brutal in their accuracy, and Sarah flinches as each one finds its mark. But I'm not done. Months of suppressed anger and betrayal pour out like water through a broken dam, unstoppable and devastating. "So you started undermining me, making me feel incompetent, criticizing my parenting techniques, creating opportunities for Marcus to demonstrate how much better he was at everything from diaper changes to bedtime routines. You turned my own home into a competition I didn't even know I was losing." Lily has stopped crying and is looking back and forth between the adults with the wide-eyed fascination that babies reserve for dramatic moments they don't understand, but instinctively know are important. Her tiny hand pats my chest in what might be an attempt at comfort, and the gesture nearly breaks my heart with its unconscious loyalty. "But here's what you didn't count on," I continue, my voice growing stronger with each word. "You didn't count on me figuring it out. You didn't count on me taking action. And you definitely didn't count on discovering that maybe I'm not the incompetent father you convinced yourselves I was." I gesture around our campsite, at the evidence of 5 successful days in the wilderness with a 6-month-old baby. No emergencies, no disasters, no proof that I'm incapable of caring for my own daughter without constant supervision and correction. "Look at her," I command, and both Sarah and Marcus obey, their eyes focusing on Lily's bright, alert face. Does she look traumatized? Does she look neglected? Or does she look like a happy, healthy baby who's been perfectly safe with her father? The question hangs in the air, unanswerable because the evidence is right there in my arms. Lily babbles happily, reaching for a butterfly that's landed on my shoulder, completely unaware that this conversation is determining the shape of her future. She looks perfect, Sarah admits, her voice breaking on the words. She looks like she's exactly where she belongs. And with that admission, the foundation of their entire justification crumbles. If I'm not incompetent, if Lily is thriving in my care, if this camping trip has proven my capability as her sole caregiver, then what was their plan really about? Not protecting Lily? Protecting their own desires at the expense of a father's relationship with his child. Marcus clears his throat, and when he speaks, his voice sounds different, smaller, less certain. What happens now? Where do we go from here? It's the first time he's acknowledged that he doesn't control this situation, that the decisions aren't his to make. For 5 days, they've been the ones searching, planning, trying to impose their will on circumstances they created. Now they're finally asking instead of demanding. Now, I say, settling back into my camp chair with Lily on my lap. We establish some new ground rules, starting with the fact that I'm Lily's father, not you, Marcus. I appreciate that you care about her, but your role in her life is whatever Sarah and I decide it should be, not whatever feels natural or convenient. The boundary is clear and non-negotiable, and Marcus nods slowly, perhaps finally understanding how far he overstepped in his eagerness to build a family with Sarah. And Sarah, I continue, turning my attention to my wife. We need to decide if we're going to rebuild this marriage on honest ground or end it cleanly so we can co-parent without the drama and deception. The choice is stark and immediate. No more gradual transitions or carefully orchestrated plans. Either we commit to making our actual marriage work, or we admit it's over and figure out how to share custody of our daughter without turning her into a weapon. I want to try, Sarah says quickly, hope and desperation warring in her voice. I want to rebuild. I want to remember why we fell in love in the first place, why we decided to have a baby together. But I'm not ready to make that decision yet. Not here in the wilderness with emotions running high and adrenaline clouding everyone's judgment. This week has shown me what I'm capable of as a father, but it's also shown me how much damage has been done to the trust that should anchor a marriage. Then we start with counseling, I tell her. Professional help to figure out if there's anything left to save, and in the meantime, things change at home. No more undermining my parenting. No more helpful involvement from Marcus unless we both agree it's appropriate, and no more secrets. The terms are simple, but non-negotiable. Either she's willing to do the work to rebuild what she helped destroy, or we admit the marriage is over and focus on being the best parents we can be separately. As the sun begins to set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, that seem to blessing this moment of brutal honesty, Lily falls asleep in my arms. Her trust, her contentment, her obvious happiness. They're the proof that I needed, the validation that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Tomorrow, we'll pack up our campsite and drive back to civilization. But we're not going back to the life we left behind. We're going forward to whatever comes next, armed with the knowledge that I'm a good father, that Lily belongs with me, and that no one gets to take that away from us again. The father has been reborn in the wilderness, and the man who returns home will be stronger, more confident, and completely unwilling to accept anything less than the respect he deserves.